All right, and we're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this informative session. My name is JC Phelps, and I'm a business coach with the London Center of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. And I'll go ahead and let my better half of the presentation introduce herself too.
I think we're equal halves, but my name is Vallorie Henderson, and I am the Center Director at the Berea KSBDC. Happy to be here with everyone.
The Kentucky Small Business Development Center is proud to be a part of the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment. And we are funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. All opinions, conclusions, and recommendations expressed are those of the authors and not necessarily the SBA. To tell you a little bit more about us, we are very excited to be in our 40th year. We have been assisting the Commonwealth small business community now for 4 decades. We have 17 service centers statewide, and we have a staff that's truly experienced and knowledgeable in many sectors, allowing us to provide unparalleled coaching and training services, helping either existing business owners or also potential entrepreneurs in Kentucky succeed. Again, we are co-sponsored by the United States Small Business Administration, administered by UK, and this is in partnership with many regional universities, community and private colleges, and the private sector, and we're very grateful for all of those partnerships. To tell you a little bit again about how we work, we are able to serve clients at no cost, which is always one of our things that we're proud to say, through an agreement with our funders. In return for the time that we work with you at no cost, we only ask very few things of you. Number one, you will occasionally receive surveys from the Kentucky Small Business Development Center and its funding partners. All information is confidential, so we would love to hear from you on these and to let us know how we served you and how we can best serve you. Secondly, if we work with you and we gain some impact, whether you start a business or infuse some capital, or in this case, receive the SVOG, our funders want to know about those business successes. And so when we experience these impacts that are either directly or indirectly attributable to our assistance, we will ask you to confirm by submitting an impact verification. These 2 steps ensure that our funding continues, of course, for the Kentucky SBDC, and it guarantees our ability to assist you long term. And that's why we've been here for 40 years, y'all. Just to let you know a little bit about some of the impact we've had in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This data is aggregated between 2018 and 2020. We've served over 4,500 clients. We've helped start 472 new businesses here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That has supported 9,286 jobs. And through all of these ventures, we have capitalized and helped clients capitalize on $166.8 million in either equity investments, loans, grants, things of that nature. We're very proud of these facts, and it is an honor to serve you all. In talking about serving you all, we provide a multitude of services. This is certainly not a cumulative list, but just an idea. We do a lot of one-on-one business coaching. That is what Vallorie and I both do. We provide assistance for small business owners if you are seeking capital in your business. We can certainly help you conduct market research. We can provide connections to several other small business resources to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. And again, our staff is really widely versed in lots of specialties, so we can certainly chat about almost any business issue that you may have. And we always promise if we don't have the answer, we will find the answer for you. Through our strategic partners, we do just want to recognize that there are many organizations such as sub-partners that go into this. We are thankful for all the boards that contribute to the SBDC, as well as many chambers of commerce and economic development forces around the state. But that is the spiel about the SVDC. But I know you all are here today to learn about the SVOG. And I'm excited, and Valerie's excited. We're here to present the information that we know to be true as of today, contingent on the fact that information, of course, is subject to change, and this grant is not ready to apply for yet, but it will soon be, hopefully. So we are presenting everything that we know. But to give you some context, I'll go ahead and start there. Your first question, if you're on here curious about the grant, you may ask, what is the SVOG? And the SVOG, that stands for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. It was established by the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues Act, which you may have seen in the news, and that was signed into law on the 27th of December of 2020. This program is quite large in that it includes $15 billion in grants to shuttered venues, and this is to be administered by the SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance. Going forth there, when I tell someone what this grant is or what it stands for, I think the next obvious question is, how much is there to get, or what would the amount be? So hopefully this will provide some clarity to you in determining the amount of the possible SVOG. Eligible applicants, and we'll talk about eligibility forthcoming, may qualify for an SVO grant equal to, and I've bolded this here for y'all, 45% of their gross earned revenue, with the maximum amount available for a single grant award of $10 million. $2 billion, however, of this total spend of the grant program is reserved for eligible applications with up to 50 full-time employees. So while that's the general rule, the 45%, there is a date determinant here as well, and you'll hear about two dates from me, so be sure to notice the differences and to not convolute the two. So in determining the amount, the date that we want to hone in on is January 1st, 2019. And for an eligible entity in operation on January 1st, 2019, or of course before, grants will be for that amount equal to 45% of the 2019 gross earned revenue, or 10 million, whichever is less. Where the slightly more confusing part comes in is if you began operation after January 1st, 2019, of which you still qualify, and we'll talk about that cutoff here in a second, the grant will be calculated slightly differently there. The determined amount of the SVOG in that case will be the average monthly gross revenue for each full month you were in operation during 2019, multiplied by 6, or $10 million, whichever is less. This is the process by which, when you apply, they will determine the amount of your grant. So again, the differentiation there is at January 1st, 2019. So you will learn about eligibility here in a bit, and maybe you say, I'm eligible, I know how it's going to be calculated, how can I spend this money? And these are the applicable uses of the SVOG funds. First, you can use it for payroll costs, which is always a great thing, and has been afforded through other programs, which we'll discuss the differentiation there. You can use it towards rent payments, utility payments, scheduled mortgage payments, but I did include the caveat here, it cannot be used for mortgage payments that are prepaying principal. These are ones that are already scheduled and occurring. Same thing with debt payments on any indebtedness incurred in the ordinary course of business prior to the 15th of February, 2020. Worker protection expenditures, payments to independent contractors. So that brings up the question of independent contractors versus a typical employee. They are included here. However, it's not to exceed $100,000 in annual compensation per contractor. other ordinary and necessary business expenses, including maintenance costs, and this differs on a case-by-case basis, depending on the venue that you are discussing. It includes administrative costs, that can be fees and licensing, among other things. State and local taxes and fees. I think a lot of people will be interested to read that one. Operating leases in effect as of 2/15/20. Again, there are lots of dates here to really take note to. It can be used for insurance payments. And while this may not be the primary use of funds, that's the caveat with this last one, funds can also be used for advertising, production, transportation, and any capital expenditure related to producing a theatrical or a live performing arts production. So we have learned what the grant is. We've learned how much the grant amount will be, how that is determined. We've learned what you can use the grant money for. So how do you know if you're eligible? According to the literature, an eligible entity for the SVOG, again, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, may be any live venue operator or promoter, theatrical producer, live performing arts organization operator, museum operator, motion picture theater operator, and talent representative. And this is per the Economic Aid Act. Additionally, entities of any of these types that are owned by state or local governments are eligible to apply if that governmentally owned entity also acts solely as a venue operator, a museum, etc. And I think the SBA had a great example of this in some of their literature. If you are a city Parks and Rec department, for example, that operated a bandstand in a public square, along with running other various nature parks and other park activities, this would not qualify as an eligible entity. And that's because the primary purpose was not, the bandstand. It is just a part of it. Finally, if you have a subsidiary, of a business owned by an eligible entity that also meets the requirements in and of itself, that subsidiary may qualify as an eligible entity in and of itself. There are a couple stipulations to note, and this is that very important date. I was referencing the second one here. To be eligible for the SVOG, eligible businesses must have been in operation as of February 29th, 2020. And so that's pre-pandemic, of course. However, here's the stipulation for the people that started at the beginning of the year. Any business or firm not in operation in 2019 may qualify for an SVOG if their gross earned revenues for the second, third, or fourth quarter of 2020 demonstrate a reduction of not less than 25% from their gross earned revenue from the first quarter. So that would be the criteria for any business that began operations January 1st, 2020, leading up to the cutoff of the 29th of February. I mentioned some of the other programs, and I anticipate this will be a large question. When the pandemic first started, we heard a lot about two programs, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. And some of the uses, such as payroll between the SVOG and the PPP, have some correlation. So the question may become, what is the relationship between the two? And can I apply for both? And there are mixed answers here depending on the point of time. If you are an entity that applied and was approved for a paycheck protection loan prior to December 27th of last year, 2020, you are eligible to apply also for an SVOG. If you applied for a first draw and that's a second dream, that should be second draw, excuse us, PPP loan on or after December 27th, you will not be eligible to apply for the SVOG unless or until that PPP loan application is declined on your behalf. And so here comes the question. An entity, since you cannot apply for both a PPP loan and an SVOG at the same time, you must make an informed business decision as to which program will most benefit you and apply accordingly. If you're rejected by one program, say you're in there for the PPP right now, you're of course eligible to apply for the other, and vice versa. There are many considerations here, including maybe the amount of the award that you will receive. And Valerie will chat about things that you need to be doing to prepare for the SVOG, and that can inform this decision.
So let's talk about some of the real specific requirements for applying for the SVOG. It has to do with where you sit. I just think that's interesting, but the Economic Aid Act specifically requires fixed seating and makes no allowance for temporary, removable, modular, convertible, or other non-fixed seating arrangements. The Economic Aid Act does not require qualifying venues to be indoors. If the venue meets the applicable eligibility requirements, it should be eligible to apply for an SVOG. I used to live in Louisville, so what comes to mind is the Iroquois Amphitheater. It is outside, but those are fixed seatings, and there's a beautiful stage. Regarding mobile entities, among other requirements, the Economic Aid Act requires a venue to have defined performance and audience spaces. So what wouldn't allow you to apply for the SVOG? The following circumstances preclude an otherwise eligible firm from applying for an SVOG. The entity does not have a place of business located in the United States. That makes sense. If you're not a United States-based business, the United States government's probably not going to give you a grant. If you do not operate primarily within the United States and it does not make significant contribution to the U.S. economy through payment of taxes or use of American products, materials, or labor. In other words, if it's not benefiting the American people. If the entity was not in operation as of that magic date that JC mentioned, February 29th, 2020. If the entity received a PPP loan on or after December 27th, 2020. I think JC did a really great job in those earlier slides talking about it is a strategic decision on your part as a business owner to decide which of those you would apply for. You can't have both. Okay. So also disqualifications for the SVOG is an entity that is publicly traded as a corporation or is majority owned and controlled by a publicly traded corporation. More than 10% of its 2019 gross revenue came from the federal government, not counting disaster assistance. We all know 2020 was an exceptional year. And so chances are there are businesses out there that got a really high percentage of their disaster loan benefits, and this doesn't affect them. So it owns or operates, if the entity owns or operates venues, theaters, museums, or talent agencies in more than one country, if it owns or operates venues, theaters, museums, or talent agencies in more than 10 states, and it had more than 500 employees as of February 29th, 2020. To me, this is saying very clearly, these are for the small businesses of the United States. So I like to talk about museums. I worked for them in many years. So museum operations. Is a museum partially funded with state dollars eligible to apply? Yes, actually, JC answered that question already. While there are specific eligibility rules for entities owned by state or local government, the receipt of funding from a state government does not affect its eligibility. Is a museum that receives CARES Act funding eligible to apply? Yes. Per the Economic Aid Act, receipt of CARES Act funding does not disqualify an entity for SVOGs. So, live venue operators and promoters. These are somewhat a little bit surprising, I'll say, but these are the rules. Wedding and event venue eligibility, it's not likely that they would qualify for this type of grant. Sports stadium, venue used for concerts, non-sport performances, it is not likely. Restaurants that feature live music, not likely. And just a little insight into that, the restaurant's really there to provide food. They might have decided to add some entertainment at the time, but this grant is specifically for venues that offer those types of entertainment. Performing Arts Center owned and operated by the government, the state college. Yes, we've established earlier that government funding is not going to keep you from being allowed to apply for these funds. A company that uses 1099 versus W-2s, the companies that have contractors or do they have employees? Both can apply. Theatrical production management business, it is possible to apply for this funds. The talent agency, it is possible. Any of those that, if you have questions about, feel free to reach out to any of the SBDC consultants. We're here to give you more guidance on those that are somewhat yes or no kinds of answers. The application process. So this is kind of a big deal, but we're going to walk you through it. So if you don't already have one, it is in your best interest to apply to obtain a Dun & Bradstreet, a DUNS number, as soon as possible. Why? Because this application process can take a long time. We have a website address included here that is going to be on the Facebook page. I think Kevin's putting that up. That is a place where you would apply online for a DUNS number. Many of you hopefully already have a DUNS number. I'm sure all the larger organizations do. But that is required. Why is that required? Because this application for this grant is going through SAMS. So SAMS is the System of Award Management, SAM.gov. And as a SAM registration can sometimes take up to 2 weeks once submitted, you need to have everything lined up. You need to have that DUNS number in line, and you need to be prepared to go ahead and apply for that through SAM as soon as you have the DUNS number. All applications go through SAM. A lot of questions might be, can't I use other federal identification numbers? No. To go through SAM, you have to have a DUNS number. So there is an organization, the Kentucky Procurement Technical Assistance Center, that can help you. We can help you also, but PTAC, as we refer to it, is the organization that focuses on helping applicants get into the SAM system. These are typically folks that are seeking government contracts, and certainly a large percentage of the folks that are applying for this may already do that, but PTAC is out there to help you with that, as are we. So a couple of other things to have ready for when you start the application, when we know when the application is open. So you should also gather your documents that demonstrate your number of employees and monthly revenues so that you can calculate the average number of qualifying employees you had over the prior 12 months. We use the term employees, but don't forget that can also include contractors. Qualifying employees means workers, we'll say that work at least 30 hours per week. Those are considered full-time. Employees that work between 10 and 29 hours per week are considered 1/2 of a full-time employee. Workers that work less than 10 hours per week are not considered an employee or a contractor with the business. So what else do you need? You need to determine the extent of gross earned revenue loss that you experienced between 2019 and 2020. This and additional information such as floor plans, that's kind of to show that you do have those specific areas in your facility just for this type of venue for presenting. Do you have a stage? Do you have that fixed seating? So you also need contract copies and other evidence that will be needed to apply. So those copies of contracts are the folks that are maybe in there working in those full-time positions that we've described before. In other words, you do need to prove that you've spent the money in this way. So the SBA defines earned revenue as monies organizations receive from the sale of goods or services, such as admission tickets, merchandise, food and beverages, advertising sales, and contracted presentation income. This commonly accepted definition of earned revenue does not include other sources of funds that an organization may receive, such as donations, sponsorships, governmental assistance, grants, or returns on investments. So here's one of the frequently asked questions. Is rental income from tenants and income from renting the venue for private events counted as earned revenue? Yes. Rental income from longer-term tenants and from short-term rentals for event hosting should be included in earned revenue because they derive from standard commercial transactions for the paid use of facilities. Another frequently asked question, does a nonprofit count membership revenue? Sometimes, yes and no. Like fundraising, the portion of membership costs that represents the estimated value of the goods or services provided as a condition of membership should be included in gross earned revenue. The portion of a membership cost that exceeds the estimated value of the goods or services provided as a condition of membership is considered a contribution and excluded from gross earned revenue. So if we think about that, if you have purchased a membership to a museum and that membership entitles you to unlimited visitation or access to the institution. So folks that don't have that membership pay a visitation fee, an admission fee. So you could include whatever that admission fee is to the public in your revenue. So the SBA is working expeditiously to open SVOG applications and encourages you to stay up to date by frequently visiting. This website will also be included on the information on Facebook. This is just, and this is what we do in business every day. You have to be poised and ready. You have to be ready to see that opportunity and seize it. I see that there's a question here in chat. I'm going to take that and see if I can answer it. Would a promoter of an annual festival be eligible for SVOG? Sorry if this was covered and I missed it. I think JC covered some part of that. And JC, let's answer this together. I'm assuming that part of it has to do with where the festival is held. Is that what you would assume?
So I'll circle back to the eligible entities here. And so the question was for a promoter, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So the eligible entity for the SVOG includes the following. live venue operators or promoters. So promoters are included there. If they promote the live venue, that then fits all of the other pieces of required eligibility. And just to continue, if there are more people that have dialed in and started listening, theatrical producers as well, live performing arts organization operators, a museum operator, motion picture theater operator, and talent representatives. And all of that is per the Economic Aid Act. So from my end, as long as the other qualifications are met and there's nothing that disqualifies the promoter, a promoter is applicable here.
So there's another question in our chat from Nettie Tesmer, and she asks, I'm the director of an arts center that provides performances, concerts, and gallery spaces. Would we then fall under the museum category? Are there stipulations for that? So there's not specific categories on the application, but I think what JC just read, certainly arts centers and performance centers are eligible to apply for this grant, for the SVOG grant. Do we have other questions that we should be addressing? I'm not seeing any.
Valerie, I will scoot over to this slide. Again, I am JC Phelps and this is Valerie Henderson. These are our emails. If you would like to be in contact with the SBDC, and please still submit questions if you have them, you can, of course, we have our personal emails here, but if you want to be connected also in our system, please reach out, and this will be in the Facebook chat as well, to info@ksbdc.org. And a member of our staff will connect you with a coach. That's a great place to go to input your information. So certainly reach out to us as you have more questions, and we are giving the best answers with the information we have at the present.
So there are a few new questions or remarks that have shown up in the chat comment. Do we have any expected timeline? Unfortunately, we don't. That's why we're trying to urge you now to be prepared. And when that date is announced, when the application process is open, we want you to be ready to respond to that. Nicole Ray UrbanX says the DUNS number should not cost the business. That's correct. This is free for those who have a SAM profile. Yes, you may need to go through the SAM process to get the free Dun & Bradstreet number. I actually received my Dun & Bradstreet number for free online several years ago as an independent business owner myself. So both of those are good. That's good information and good suggestions. It looks like that might be all for now. It's been great to be with all of you today, and I hope you will feel comfortable reaching out to all of us here at the KSBDC. A question just popped up. What about children's museums? Yes, they fall within that category of they have admission fees. They have, a lot of them have stages. I used to work in a children's museum. So yes, they are certainly within that category. So I hope you'll feel comfortable reaching out to us. Thanks for sharing part of your day with us, and go forth and do good work. That's what I say to JC all the time. I say it to myself as well.
Thank you all. We appreciate you and we look forward to working with you.
Take care.